Chapter 4. Purple Hair, ID, and Shocking People. A small part of me wished I'd stayed at Matt and Nicola's. I hadn't seen him in person since my 17th, what with Mason, Emily, and my mum. In fact, thinking about it, I don't think he even knows I had a baby. Oh, that is going to be a fun conversation. I did stay for an hour, though, and it wasn't totally to steal some of his water and food. To be fair, there were a few reasons in play as to why I didn't stay. The main one being I needed to haul ass to Miami before the spring break crowd got too large. The second was Nikki's pregnancy. Despite my job, I wasn't exactly the best at keeping secrets. I mean, I could if it didn't endanger life, but Nikki and Matt had always been close, so keeping something this big from him would only serve to push them apart. Take it from someone who was pretty much alone her whole pregnancy. It's not fun to be alone during the hardest months of your life. Your body changes and warps literally before your eyes, never mind the constant backache, feetache, aches in general, and emotional whiplashes. The third and final reason? Matt's girlfriend. I did not like his girlfriend, let that be known to the world. She was a judgmental, snobby, sly, snidey, and greedy bitch. All she ever did was slag people off behind their backs, including Nikki. For God's sake, she even argued with me over Matthew once. That was an interesting night.
I don't like how much time you spend with him.
Kelsey nonchalantly picked her nails. I frowned. Sorry? Kelsey sighed.
Are you stupid? Would you like me to say it slower?
I glared. No, I heard you just fine, I snapped.
So, where's the confusion?
That's what I'm wondering, I answered. Kelsey's face soured even more than her usual sneer, which was quite impressive. I thought creatures as ugly as her were hidden in creepypasta communities.
What are you on about?
I stuck my index finger up. Don't try to gaslight me so you can cry to Matt about—
Matthew. His name is Matthew.
I rolled my eyes, barreling over her dog whistle voice. About how much of an evil bitch I am. That's not how things work. Kelsey chuckled.
And he's gonna listen to you? Over me, his girlfriend? Sweetie, I know you've been single for a while, but boys believe their girlfriends over their friends. As it should be.
I raised an eyebrow. Coming back to your original point, sweetie, I mimicked. I can spend as much time with Matt as I want. Kelsey went back to picking at her false nails. False like the rest of her fake ass.
No, you can't.
I looked around the room dramatically. Who's gonna stop me? I bit back. Kelsey rolled her eyes.
Whatever, bitch.
I laughed. Oh, no, honey. If you think that's me being a bitch, then you do not know what a real bitch is. Kelsey shouted and cried for Matt after that, claiming I'd called her names, threatened her with my gun and all that shit. Stupidly, he believed her and made me leave. Why are we still friends, then? Well, for two reasons mainly. A, he was one of the ones I confided in over Mason, obviously next to my mum, dad, and two of my other closest friends. And B, I'm good mates with Nikki, and as such, have to be with him as well. Also, I guess I wasn't ready to let go of the past we had. People often talk about losing a boyfriend or girlfriend, but losing a best friend is so much worse in my eyes. Sure, a boy or girlfriend is your world, but a best friend, generally speaking, has been around long before any kind of commitment to another person. They saw you in the highs and lows of life, often riding the high with you or picking you up out of the low. At least until they got into a relationship and left you in the dust. Don't get me wrong, I love that my friends get into healthy relationships, and I do love that for them, but I'd never leave them behind. Why should they get to leave me behind? Sadly, many people don't seem to get that memo, Matt and my family included. When I finally pulled up to the apartment in Miami, it was 6 a.m. I didn't stay to sleep at Matt's house in the end. Kelsey was there, and I was ready to commit war crimes upon her ugly mug. Matt ushered her out to the shops, so I catnapped for an hour while she was out and then pushed off again. The spring break crowd hadn't arrived yet, so the traffic wasn't too bad. The apartment wasn't anything special. It had one bedroom, one small bathroom, a small kitchenette and a living area. The sofa folded out into a pull-out bed, so if Miller had to stay with me, he could sleep on that. I walked into the apartment after spending an hour trying to find the key, which was hidden in the letterbox, and immediately went for a bath. I leaned over the side of the bathtub and checked my phone for any emails or missed calls. I had one from my mum, 2 from Miller, 1 from Jack and 1 from Matthew. I decided to ring my mum back first. It was odd that she'd rang me. It was only 3 in the morning there, and she'd rang me about 3 hours ago. But then again, her pain had probably kept her up. It often flared up whenever I was sent off to another task or during a time of great stress. If you didn't know, the FBI, or anything to do with law enforcement, was a black hole of massive stress.
Hello?
Hey, Mum.
Hey, baby. Are you in Miami?
Hey, yeah, I am. I got to the apartment about 15 minutes ago. It's nothing special, but it'll do, I replied, swishing around the bubbles.
Okay, great. I only rang to make sure you got there safely. I imagine it's quite early. I know it's only just 3 here. Aren't you an hour or 2 ahead of us?
I briefly pulled the phone away to check the time. 3, and yeah, I'm gonna nap for a few hours after my bath. I could practically hear my mum's smiling voice.
Okay, baby. Text me before you go to bed, would you?
I promised I would and hung up, saying our goodbyes. My conversation was similar with Matthew, but with a whole lot less love. He just wanted to know I'd gotten here okay. Just before I rang Miller, a ping sounded as a notification came through on my phone. I opened it with a sigh. That phrase, "speak of the devil and he or she shall appear," was 100% true. But no, surprisingly, it wasn't a message from the man who spread joy with his grin. It was Nicky. It read, "I told him." I frowned and immediately pressed the dial button. What did he say? I shook my head. Wait, scrap that. What did you tell him? How was I supposed to know what she'd told him? Did she say she dropped out? Or did she say she was pregnant? God, being a dropout in the States is quite a significant thing. It was expected that you would go to college, even though it should be called university, but that's just me, or you were considered unintelligent to a certain degree.
About the baby.
I winced. Oh, babe, I tutted. I'm guessing from your low voice that he's not happy with it? I swear to God, if Matthew wasn't at least kind about it, I'd beat him up. I knew what it was like to be on your own with no support. Obviously not my mum, she was fully supportive, and I couldn't have asked for a better person. But Nicky wasn't very close with her parents at all. They were more like aunts and uncles rather than parents.
He's not happy, but he's not angry either.
I frowned. What do you mean? Nicky sighed.
He didn't really say anything one way or the other. He literally just said,
You're happy?
and obviously, I said yes. And he went,
Okay then.
and walked out. What the hell does that mean?
Nicky, babe, you're rambling. Chill out. He probably just needs some time for it to sink in. At least he didn't yell, I said.
Maybe. But still.
I sighed. Nicky, remember you're talking to your brother. His emotional availability resembles a piece of celery, I joked. She sighed softly. He'll come around to it, I promise, I said gently.
I hope so.
She whispered. Neither of us spoke for a moment, and it turned quite awkward. Right, I'm gonna have to go, Nicky knew. You alright? I could hear her sigh again.
Yeah, I'll be fine. Thanks, Astrid.
I smiled despite her not seeing me. No problem. I hung up the call and began scrolling through my emails to find Miller's number that he'd sent over. I tried not to take great joy in ringing him so early in the morning.
Clarke, what the hell are you doing ringing me at 6 in the goddamn morning?
It's nice to hear from you too, Miller, I sarcastically replied.
Get on with it. I have to get a flight at 10.
I rolled my eyes. So, you aren't a morning person. Got it. No need to be an arse about it. I could hear Miller sigh on the other end.
I'm sorry. Happy?
I grinned. Ecstatic. Miller sighed again. I don't know. I had 2 missed calls off of you. That's why I rang, I said.
Yeah, it was asking where the hell you were. You never came back to headquarters.
I drove up here. Don't you remember me telling you? I asked. I put the phone on speaker and began washing my legs with some orange-coloured soap.
Oh, right. Well, I'm going to presume you're there now.
Yeah. When are you going to get here? I asked.
I don't know. My flight's due to leave at 10, so I'll land at 1, I think.
Okay. Where are you staying? I asked.
I don't know. I'll probably just get a hotel room for the night.
Sure, if you want to visit in 4 weeks. Everything's booked to the max because of spring break. I could hear Miller's ears whistling.
Those sneaky bastards. The answer is, I don't know then.
I chuckled.
What's so funny, Clarke? Please, I'd love a joke.
You're so easy to piss off, you know that? I teased. Miller stayed quiet. My friend has let me stay in her apartment for the weekend. She's away in Vegas for her first anniversary. You can stay here. I'll text you the address, I said. I couldn't help but feel jealous of Sandy, the friend in question. She'd met her fiancé at the same time I met Mason. However, her fiancé didn't abuse her or cause her so much mental trauma that she tried to kill herself.
Thanks, Clarke. I'll be there by 1:30. Have a good night.
Miller hung up. I unplugged the bath and stood under the shower to wash my hair while I thought about ringing Jack back. Sure, he was my brother, and really I should call him back. But talking about Mason had brought back some very unpleasant feelings. I was so angry at Jack for not answering the phone or even bothering to call back. Yeah, I'd gotten over it after about a year, but talking about it again made me feel really hurt and betrayed. It was like he didn't even care about me enough to listen to a simple voicemail. I decided I'd call him once I'd washed my hair. I rummaged through the wash bag trying to find a hair mask. I know I packed one in there somewhere. My hand brushed across a sphere-shaped thing. I frowned as I pulled it out of the bag. The only bottles I brought with me were small hotel knickknacks I'd acquired over the months. Upon inspection, I realised it was purple hair dye. The colours I usually bought were black, brown and blonde. I'd only ever bought pink once, and that was when I was 16. I tapped the bottle in my hand, trying to think why I had it with me. With a gasp, I remembered why. After my trauma with Mason, I finally felt confident enough to speak up about it in therapy sessions around a month later. My friends had encouraged me to buy purple hair dye as a sign to show I was a survivor of abuse. The abuse I sustained seemed too little in comparison to what other people experience every day, but I was a survivor. So, I bought the hair dye. I just never got around to doing it. An impulse of the moment, I dyed my hair. By the time I dropped the first dollop, it was too late, and I regretted it. But what was done was done. Nothing I could do now except commit to it and embrace it. It was one thing just being a victim of the assault, but I also wanted to let other people know that it was okay to be vocal about past trauma and be proud of what you'd survived. I sure was, even if it did take me 4 years. After I successfully dyed my hair, I called Jack back. While I was waiting for him to answer the phone, no change in the last 4 years then, I did myself some toast. I saw everything was freshly stacked, and I made a mental note to ring Sandy to thank her later on.
Hello?
Heyo, Jackie boy. You rang? I replied, taking a bite of my toast.
Did I?
I rolled my eyes. Have the last 6 years made you develop a memory problem? I snarked. I couldn't help it. I still felt pissed off with him.
Whatever, I don't know. I presume you're back home?
No, I'm in Madagascar. Great drinks they've got here, I replied.
Ha ha, very funny. Ever consider a career in the comedy business?
He snarked. Nah, I couldn't take the spotlight away from you, I replied, hoping he'd fall into the insult trap.
Aw, you think I'm funny?
Like a bee to pollen. Well, we can't have 2 comedians in the family. You've already covered the makeup department, I replied. I put the plate that I'd eaten my toast on in the sink. I'll clear it up later.
Screw you,
was Jack's eloquent response.
Who are you on the phone with, Jack?
A new voice sounded from the background. It sounded like Levi.
My sister.
There was a quick shuffling of feet before an annoyed,
The cop? She can track your phone, dumbass!
I was about to have a go at him, but the call cut out. I rolled my eyes. He's such an arrogant tosser. I definitely won't cry when his ass is behind bars. I woke up later that morning and was instantly greeted by the loud music of the spring break crowd. I quickly checked my pillow to see if any dye leaked overnight, and it had a little, but not too much. It could probably wash out with some Vanish, but I left some money for Sandy to buy a new pillowcase anyway. I rolled over onto my side to check my phone. I had no new calls besides a few from the living embodiment of joy, Miller. I quickly glanced at the time. It was then I realised why he'd call me 5 times. Oops. He was supposed to get to mine by 1:30, and it was now 3:20.
I have been waiting for 2 hours. Where the hell are you?
Miller didn't even bother with pleasantries. Hey, Mills, I spoke, biting my fingernail.
Where are you?
If I listened hard enough, I could just about hear the whistling coming from his ears. At the apartment, I replied. I put Miller on speaker as I fumbled around, trying to find clothes to wear.
No, you aren't. I'm at the apartment.
I frowned. No you aren't. I'm currently putting my socks on in my bedroom. You are at the right place, yes? I asked. I could hear some shuffling in the background. Miller cursed profusely.
I'm at the wrong fucking apartment.
I bit back my laughter, knowing if I laughed he would probably reach through the phone and strangle me. Where are you then? I roughly know my way here. As it goes, he sucked up the joy from a little way down the street. I will just walk down until you reach me. You'll see me, I directed, smirking. It wouldn't be hard to spot a girl with bright purple hair.
Okay, I'll be there in 5.
I could see Miller stalking down the street and began waving my arm to get his attention. I could see him frown deeply, what the fuck else is new, before he charged the rest of the way over. He unceremoniously dropped his bags on the floor and gestured wildly to my hair.
Jesus, what the hell is that?
He asked. I frowned slightly and put my hands in my pockets. My hair? I asked, confused.
I know that, Sherlock. I meant, what have you done to it? This is strictly against code.
A burst of anger ran through my veins. First of all, I'm always in code. No heels above 2 inches, no plaits and braids, no loose hair, no dresses above the knee, no skirts without tights. Whatever they ask, I do, I snapped. Second of all, we're on a mission with young adults, of whom dye their hair. Often. Miller narrowed his eyes. I barreled over any protests. Thirdly, screw the dress codes, I snapped. Miller looked taken aback for a split second before he glared back just as fiercely. I spoke before he could, though. Look up what purple ribbon represents. Then you'll understand. I stormed into the apartment, not waiting for an answer and letting the door slam behind me. Later that evening, probably around 6, I was getting ready for a show that we'd paid to see. Well, we hadn't paid for anything, but that's a story for later. Plus, the theatre was closer to the centre of the city, meaning if we got word of anything suspicious concerning the Cobra gang, it still made me retch, what an awful name, we'd be close enough to hopefully act and grab them amid the crime. So, there I was, replacing my diamante earrings with plain old studs to stop my ears from healing. I wasn't going to wear real diamonds, come on, not for a job. Normally I wouldn't wear any at all, but I'd only had them redone a few weeks ago and couldn't leave them out. While I might not give 2 shits about my hair, as evidenced earlier, earrings and jewellery are a different ballpark. Jewellery gives criminals something to grab onto and potentially use as a weapon. I have full faith that Jack wouldn't try anything like that with me, not because he was a good person, but because he wasn't totally brain dead. When we used to play fight as kids, he would always be put down within the first minute or so. I highly doubt Blake is one for physical confrontation unless provoked into it, or possibly drunk. Clarice? Maybe. I feel like she's a scratcher and a biter though, as younger siblings often are. Not me, of course. Levi, though, he was a true wild card. I had absolutely nothing on him. I didn't know if he was academically smart or just incredibly street smart. I do believe that he's a verbal fighter over physical fights. His build or personality don't exactly scream, "I'll rearrange your teeth if you look at me wrong," but they also don't say, "Please stand on me, I'm not worthy." So, I have nothing. Mind you, I didn't think that Jack would ever even join social media, never mind a fucking crime gang. Too deep into my head to notice Miller approaching, I failed to clock on that it was his hand on my shoulder. Which is why he shouted out like a little girl.
Ow! What the fuck?
I released him immediately, apologies pouring out of my mouth almost quicker than the laughter.
I'm so glad you think my pain is amusing.
Sorry, I giggled. Miller hummed.
You don't sound sorry.
I cleared my throat softly. Well, I could lie and say I am, if it'll make you feel better. He huffed with his signature eye roll. I rolled my eyes as well, turning back to the small mirror in Sandy's room, continuing my efforts of trying to put the earrings in without losing the damn back. The room fell into a slightly awkward silence, neither of us knowing what to say. I couldn't exactly bitch and moan about my inability to put a fucking earring in, now could I? Miller is the straightest guy you will ever meet, and I would bet you any number of money that he couldn't even tell the difference between a luxury shoe and a shoe from a discount website. I never really knew what to say to him. He was too dignified to understand what having fun meant, and too old to understand anything trending. It ruled out talking about Instagram or YouTube stuff. It was like trying to talk to my dad. So, the silence wasn't really enjoyable. At least until Miller randomly came out with,
I'm guessing you don't have Alzheimer's or epilepsy.
I stopped short for a minute, confused. No? I frowned.
Or thyroid cancer?
He continued. Hopefully not. I twisted around in my seat. Are you having a stroke? I asked, frowning.
You told me to search for a purple ribbon.
His pitiful attempt at human communication finally sunk in. Oh, yeah, have a deeper look. None of what you said so far applies to me. I turned back to the mirror and finally clicked the back of the earring in. Miller was quiet, so I watched his reaction through the mirror reflection. His face hardened. The next thing I knew, his phone was on the table and he was hugging me, albeit a roughly one.
No one deserves to be abused, Danielle. Not even the worst people deserve it.
I didn't say anything. Honestly, I both enjoyed and hated the attention. First of all, Miller hadn't shown me any kind of, kindness in the few weeks I'd known him, short of basic courtesy. So, it was very disorientating having him hug me. On the flip side, I loved being hugged. I was a hugger when I was in my early teens, something that very quickly changed when my siblings stopped coming to visit. I still liked being hugged, but only if I really trusted you or if I really needed it. I didn't need the hug from Miller, but it felt like he needed the hug, you know? It was similar to brotherly love, something I didn't receive much as a child, or growing up for that matter. Miller pulled away just as roughly, snatching up his phone and turning away. Just before he left the room, presumably to get ready for the evening, he spoke over his shoulder.
Purple suits you.
I let the door click shut before I turned back to the mirror. I felt strangely warm and happy as I strapped on my boots and unplugged my phone. Those weren't emotions you typically felt around Miller. I shook my head, shaking the thoughts out for now. I'd box them up and stuff them into the same compartment my trauma was in. I'll deal with it later. I grabbed my FBI ID badge from the bedside unit and stuffed it into my small purse, which I then shoved into my coat pocket. Miller, are you ready? I called, having already waited in the hall for 10 minutes. Seriously, and men go on at us ladies for taking our time.
Why? We've had no calls in yet.
He called back. I want to look around the area and get my bearings. Plus, I want to try and find Jack, I yelled back. Maybe I can get him to slip up and say what they're doing. Miller's freshly showered face popped out the bathroom door, a glare plastered onto it. I swear, this man has either always had a glare on his face or a frown.
Why? He's an interstate criminal,
he pointed out. I rolled my eyes. I know that. I'm on the case as well, I snarked. Miller rolled his eyes. But he's still my brother, and I want to speak to him before we go, I answered.
It's against protocol, but we've already established that you don't give a shit about the rules.
He began with a pointed glare. I did my best not to shrink back.
It's also against my better judgment, but I can't stop you. Not unless I tie you to a chair. But I worry you'd break free and kill me in my sleep.
he joked. I smirked. No, that'd be too kind. Miller rolled his eyes playfully this time.
Whatever. I'll be ready in 30 minutes.
Satisfied that His Royal Majesty would be ready when I returned, I ventured into the town square, ignoring the lingering stares. Seeing a formally dressed lady during spring break was going to be uncommon. It's a good job I was used to being stared at. My eyes fell on the Tiffany's store pretty quickly, which wasn't uncommon. I loved Tiffany's jewellery, even if I was way too poor. There was a woman, presumably the security guard, standing out front. I approached anyway, curiosity winning over. For some reason, the windows were curtained off. I wondered what was going on.
Well, Mom, you can't go through here. Employees and guests only.
The bodyguard had put a hand in front of my chest. Guests? I wondered. I pulled out my FBI badge and smiled sweetly. Agent Clarke, ma'am. I do believe I have clearance to pass through. Yeah, okay, so we're not supposed to use our badges unless necessary. And as much as I'd like it to be so, browsing in Tiffany's store did not constitute a necessity. But something was going on in that store. How could I truly return to Miller and confidently say that there wasn't anything out of the ordinary on this night? If the Cobras, internal gag, were going to rob anything, it'd be this. The security guard picked up the badge and looked at it carefully, obviously trying to find any source of fakeness.
My apologies, Mom.
I tutted and waved my hand as I put it in my bag. Never apologise for doing your job, ma'am. Have a good night and enjoy the spring break drunks. She quietly chuckled. I walked through the small foyer, admiring the jewellery that I was way too poor to afford. The diamonds glittered and shined in the fluorescent lights bought to provide that effect. Well played, Mr. CEO. There were so many beautiful rings and bracelets on display. It made me wonder how much that cabinet alone was worth. Easily 7 figures. I walked further in, admiring some of the less common colours, such as jade and ruby. From my understanding, most luxury brands tended to stick with the white, silvers and pure diamonds. But what caught my eye was a gorgeous emerald ring on display, nicely placed in between 2 white engagement rings. Some of the prices were ridiculous in my opinion. Who in their right mind would pay over £11,000 for a ring? I moved on in fear that I'd somehow break something. I doubt I could even afford the pillow the jewellery sat on. I walked through the displays of glittering jewels and a small doorway covered by a pinkish curtain. I pushed past it and decided to go left down the hallway. Something was happening. I've never known a jewellery shop to be empty. Not unless it was closed, but the guard at the front had said guests only.
What are you doing down here?
A voice snapped from behind. I spun around, ready to punch whoever it was. I tried to explain, but no words would come out. A security guard, I guess. I don't know, she wasn't wearing anything security guardy, was standing in front of me with her hands on her hips. She was easily the top end of 5 feet, if not higher. I'm with the FBI, I finally answered, stepping back a few steps. She held out her hand. I took my badge out of my pocket and held it up. I wasn't going to hand it over to her. I'd never met her before, and now that the initial shock had worn off, I wasn't entirely sure that she was even a guard. She gestured with her hand more fiercely. You can see just fine, I warned slightly. I didn't pack my gun, stupid mistake I know, so if this chick decided to mug me, I was a goner. Sure, I could fight, but she would take me down with no issue. She must bench press small children as a warm-up exercise.
I've got bad eyesight.
I pulled my badge back, stepping back myself. I'm good, thank you. Do you have any proof of your identification? I asked, staring into her face.
I don't need any.
I'm FBI, and I'm asking for some ID. Present it, please, I commanded. She lurched forward, shoving me into the wall. I slid down, my head pounding painfully, and was momentarily taken off guard. She snatched my badge out of my hand and ran. I whined quietly as I forced my legs to move, pushing through the violent pulses of black dots in my vision. I sped out of the shop, running after my assaulter. Hey! Stop that woman! I yelled as I tried to catch her. Several people stopped and watched. Great help, guys, thanks, but made no move to help. I continued chasing this chick through the busy streets of Miami, pushing past the drunk and most likely stoned teens. I was about to give up when John Wick's female equivalent suddenly dropped to the ground, seizing violently. An epileptic, I wondered? I jogged up to the convulsing mess on the ground and reached for my ID, discarded a few meters away.
Whoa, don't touch her. She's electric.
A new voice said from behind me. Jesus Christ! Will people stop making me jump this evening? I yelled, turning around. There stood a person I least expected. Levi McIntyre.